chosen one. What I want to say to you tonight is not loud, but it is heavy. It is not urgent in the way urgency is sold to you 100 times a day, but it is final in a way most messages never are. The Father has been watching the prayers you stopped praying because you ran out of words. He has been counting the small decisions you made when no one was looking, the moments you almost gave up and stayed one more day instead. And out of that watching, a word has been forming, assembled slowly, with you specifically in view. The window in front of you tonight has a shape. The shape has edges, and the edges close, not with theatrical drama, with quiet finality. The kind that you only recognize months later, when you realize the door you walked past was the one that would not open again on the same terms. You did not stumble into this. The same voice that called you when you were a child, when you reached for something the world could not name, that voice is calling you again, right now. There is no fear in this. Only wait. Stay with me. The word is for you. Right now, in the room where you are sitting, something is shifting that has been shifting for weeks. You felt it in the strange quiet that arrived without an invitation. You felt it in the way ordinary things stopped feeling ordinary. You felt it in the question that has been sitting in the back of your mind that you have not yet found the words to ask. And tonight, somehow, in the moment between scrolling past one thing and arriving at this, you stopped. The screen is still in front of you. The clock is still moving. The world outside this hour is still loud. But here, in this small space, something is being arranged. It is not your imagination that for weeks now you have been moving through emotional waves that arrive without warning. Peace 1 hour, sadness the next, hope rising in places where it should not have been able to rise. These shifts have nothing to do with what is happening around you. They are happening through you. Your inner weather has changed because the season inside you has changed, and you have been the last one to know. It is not a coincidence that environments which used to be tolerable are now intolerable. Conversations you used to enter with ease are draining you within minutes. Rooms full of people who once felt familiar feel suddenly far away. You are not becoming antisocial. You are becoming sensitive to frequencies you used to absorb without noticing, and your spirit is refusing what no longer matches what it is being prepared for. It is not random that you have been carrying a restless desire to create something, build something, write something, begin something, without yet knowing what. You wake up with the impulse and go to bed with it unfinished. It is not a midlife crisis. It is the early stirring of an assignment that has been kept hidden from you on purpose until the hour when it could finally be carried. It is not coincidence that the same numbers keep finding you. 3 repeated, 11 and 11. Specific times on specific clocks across days that should not have lined up. Heaven uses numbers to mark the people it is preparing, and the marking has been on you for longer than you have been counting. And it is not your imagination that the same phrase, the same teaching, the same word has been arriving across unrelated sources for the last several weeks. A friend speaks it. A book opens to it. A stranger says it without knowing why. When the same message arrives through 3 doors at once, that is not the world being noisy. That is heaven making sure you do not miss what it is saying. You have been carrying these signs for weeks, maybe months, and not telling anyone. You stopped telling people because the last few times you tried, you saw the look in their eyes that said you were imagining things. So you locked it inside and you walked alone with it, and you began to wonder if you really were inventing all of it. You were not. Across continents tonight, chosen ones are recognizing the same patterns in their own lives, and the recognition is not random. The signs are not the message. The signs are the envelope. What is inside the envelope is what I am here to give you. There are specific things the Father wants placed in front of you in this hour, and I want you to know what they are now, while you are still deciding whether to stay. By the time this message closes, you will understand why this entire season has been so quiet, and what the silence was actually building inside you. You will receive a specific framework for hearing what the Father has been trying to say, drawn from the original language of his own people. You will see the obstacle that has stopped most chosen ones from walking through their own assignment, and you will know how to recognize it before it can stop you. And before this ends, there will be a word spoken specifically over your life, a sealed declaration that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. None of this is delivered to the ones who walk away. Stay with me. You came here looking for confirmation that you were not making it up. You have that confirmation now. But that was the easy part of why you are here. The signs were the doorway. The doorway is not the room. What lives beneath the signs is the part most people who carry them never receive. Most stop at recognition, satisfied that they were seen. But recognition without revelation leaves you exactly where you started, only with prettier words for the same loneliness. Beneath every one of these signs lives a single truth, a frequency older than your name, a frequency that was fully alive in you when you were a child, that has been dimming since you were small without anyone telling you it was dimming. That is the deeper layer, and there is more underneath even that. None of it makes sense, though, until we walk back into the season you have been afraid to look at, the season you thought was punishment, and we give it a different name. You have spent the last several seasons in a kind of silence that you have not been able to name. The prayers stopped being answered the way they used to be answered. The doors that used to open did not open. The voices you used to hear in your spirit grew faint, and you began to wonder if you had done something wrong, if you had drifted, if the Father had turned his face from you and was waiting for you to find your way back through some specific repentance you could not figure out. That was never what was happening. The silence was not absence. The silence was deposit. What you mistook for being forgotten was the longest, most precise season of formation the Father has placed you in yet. It was not punishment. It was not abandonment. It was preparation. Long ago, there was a young woman who was taken from everything she knew and placed inside the palace of a king she did not love. For years, she lived in rooms that did not feel like home, surrounded by people who had been instructed to prepare her for something she had not chosen. Every season of her life that did not make sense, every interruption, every detour, every disappointment was being arranged in advance for an hour that no one in the palace could see coming yet. When that hour finally arrived, when the lives of her entire people hung on whether she would step forward or stay quiet, the man who had raised her sent her a message. He told her the obvious thing. He told her that maybe everything she had been through had been preparing her for this exact moment, this exact hour, this exact assignment that no one else could carry. You are inside that same kind of preparation right now. Every season that has not made sense, every disappointment that did not turn into the breakthrough you expected, every relationship that ended without explanation, every door that did not open the way you thought it would open, was being arranged to make you the one who could carry what is now arriving. The hour did not come early because you would not have been ready. It is not coming late. It is coming exactly on time. There is a word in the original language of the Father's people that does not exist in English. The word is Shema. Most translations turn it into the word hear, but that translation loses almost everything. Shema is not the act of hearing with your ears. Shema is the act of hearing with the intent to obey. To Shema is to receive a word so completely that the receiving itself becomes the action. For thousands of years, The Father has been training his chosen ones to do this one specific thing, not to hear more, not to know more, but to Shema, to stop the gap between hearing and heeding, to collapse it down to a single motion. The cost of skipping is the cost of hearing without Shemaing. It is the cost of letting a word land on the surface of your mind and never letting it move down into the place where action is born. Tonight is the hour the Father is teaching you to stop doing that. There was another man in the same lineage who heard his assignment clearly, who understood exactly what was being asked of him, and who did the thing most chosen ones secretly want to do when the assignment feels too heavy. He ran. He boarded a ship in the opposite direction of the city he was supposed to enter. He convinced himself that distance from the assignment was distance from the cost. You know what happened next. The storm found him, the depths found him, and the mercy of the Father found him still, because the Father is gentle even with the ones who try to skip. He gave the runner a second chance. He set him back on the path of his assignment, and the city that was meant to be saved was saved. But here is the part most people miss. The mercy is not permission. The Father will pull you back if you run, but the season of running is its own kind of cost. Days you cannot recover. Weight you carried that you did not have to carry. A storm that did not have to happen. The gentlest thing the Father ever offers you is the chance to skip the running entirely, to Shema the first time, to stay where you are tonight and receive the word without forcing him to chase you down to deliver it. What was being formed in you through all of this is a vessel large enough to hold what was always meant for you. But there is something I have to tell you that the wisdom figures alone cannot fully explain. There are two specific frequencies inside you that have been dimming since you were small. Two distinct currents in the way your spirit was designed to operate, and modern life has been quietly closing both of them in two different ways over decades. The Father is not asking you to manufacture these frequencies. They are already in you. They have always been in you. They have only been suppressed. And he has placed something in front of you in this very hour. Two specific paths that addresses each one. What you are about to hear, I am naming now, because I will not build mystery just to deliver a sales line at the end. Truth honors truth. Let what is real be named while it is early enough for you to choose freely. The two frequencies I just spoke of, the two dimming since you were small, are not abstract. They have names. They have research behind them. They have tools. What science calls brain restoration arrives in two stages, not one. The first wakes a frequency that was alive in you as a child and faded as you grew. The second opens a channel meant for receiving, a channel adult life has slowly closed. The first of those tools is called the Genius Song. It is the work of a researcher named Dr. Robert Lake, built around restoring the child mind that has gone quiet inside you. The second is called the Wealth Signal. It comes from Dr. Stephen Newton, and it addresses the channel that opens after the child mind has been restored. They were never meant to work alone. The child wakes first, and then the channel opens. That order matters more than I can fully explain in this short window before we return to the message. If your spirit is already pulling toward this, the path is placed below this video, in the description and in the pinned comment. There is no rush. The doors are there for those whose body already knows. And in the same breath that named those two paths, another truth begins to rise. The names alone are not the gift. The gift is in what comes next, what the Father has been preparing you to receive. Two paths, two waves, two doors. Let what was just named settle, and stay with me, because the names alone are not enough. There is something I have to show you about your own design that most chosen ones never see. There is a way the Father blesses his own that has been written into Scripture for thousands of years, and that almost no one applies correctly. There is also an obstacle waiting at this exact threshold that has stopped more chosen ones than any opposition you have ever faced from the outside world. It does not come as an attack. It comes as a quiet, ordinary impulse that you will not recognize as opposition until after it has worked. So, I am going to name it tonight, while it can still be named, before it can move. There is a teaching about the way the Father blesses his own, and most chosen ones have heard half of it, without realizing the half they were missing was the half that mattered. In the writings that have been kept for 2,000 years, there is a moment where the Spirit is speaking to a small group of believers, and he tells them something that, at first glance, sounds like a passing comfort. He says, "I have set before you an open door, and no one is able to shut it." Most people read that line and feel encouraged for a moment, and then they move on to the next verse. But that line was never meant to comfort you. It was meant to summon you. An open door is not a metaphor for getting in. An open door is a description of where you are right now. You are not at the bottom of a stairwell, wondering if the door at the top is locked. You are standing at the threshold itself. The door is already open. The light from the other side is already spilling onto the floor in front of you. The only question that remains is what you are going to do with the body that is already at the threshold. There are three kinds of people the Father watches at this exact threshold. The first kind sees the open door, sees the light, and walks through. They do not understand everything on the other side. They do not need to. They trust the one who opened the door more than they trust their own readiness, and so they cross. The second kind sees the open door and stops to debate it. They examine the frame. They question the timing. They wonder whether the door was opened for them or for someone they know. They look back over their shoulder at the life they were living before they noticed the door. And while they debate, the season turns and the light begins to dim. Not because the door has closed, but because the season the door belonged to was finite, and the chosen one, who was meant to walk through, chose discussion over crossing. The third kind sees the open door and turns away. They cannot believe it could be for them. They have been told their whole lives that doors like this open for someone else. So they walk back into the room they came from, and they close the conversation in their own spirit before the Father can even ask the question. Earlier in this conversation, two paths crossed your awareness. Two doors, the Father is calling them. Both of them already placed below this video for the ones who hear what they are. I am not pulling you toward them tonight. I am only naming that they are part of the same threshold I am describing right now. The Father does not waste open doors. He places them in the same hour, in the same message, in the same moment of recognition, because the chosen ones, who are ready to walk through one door, tend to be ready to walk through all of them. Now there is something practical I want to give you, because recognition alone does not move you across the threshold. You need a way to actually hear what the Father is saying, not just sense it. I am going to give you a framework. I call it the three-layer listen. It is built on the original Hebrew word I shared with you earlier, the word Shema. Most chosen ones think hearing is one motion, hear and then act. But the people who carry their assignments into completion are the ones who learned that hearing is actually three movements, and the second one is the movement almost everyone skips. The first layer is hear. This is the surface. The words land. The message arrives. You can repeat it back. Most spiritual content stops here. You hear the teaching, you nod, you move on. Hearing alone changes nothing. The second layer is hold. This is the layer that almost no one wants to do. Holding means you let the words sit in you, unexecuted, until the meaning of what you heard travels from your mind down into the place where decisions are actually made. Holding is uncomfortable because you can already feel what the word is asking of you, and you have not yet said yes. Most chosen ones, when they feel that discomfort, jump straight from hearing to acting on something easier, something the word did not actually ask of them, something that lets them feel like they obeyed without having to obey what was actually said. The Father is not fooled by that. The third layer is heed. Heed is the small action that says yes, not the dramatic action, not the public announcement of your transformation. The small, often invisible, often inconvenient action that proves the word moved through you. The text you send. The conversation you do not avoid. The decision you stop postponing. The door you walk through tonight, even though it was easier to keep watching. Hear, hold, heed. The chosen ones who carry their assignments into completion are the ones who learned not to skip the middle. Try this on what you have already heard tonight. You have heard a great deal. The signs were named. The silence was renamed as preparation. The two paths were placed in front of you. Now, hold what you have heard. Do not jump to act on the easiest part of it. Let it sit. The heeding will come, and it will come more clearly than you think, but only if you do not skip the holding. Before this message moves into its closing, I want you to know something. The Father has placed a specific declaration on my heart that I am going to speak over your life at the end of this. It is not a generic blessing. It is a sealed word, calibrated for the chosen one who has stayed this long. So, stay with me through what comes next, because the part that is just for you is at the end. There is one more thing I have to name, and it is the part most chosen ones do not see coming. There is an obstacle waiting at this exact threshold, and it has stopped more chosen ones from walking through their open doors than every external opposition combined. It does not feel like opposition. That is what makes it dangerous. I am going to call it by its real name tonight: the skipping pattern. The skipping pattern is the trained reflex inside you that turns away from the very things meant for you in the precise moment they arrive. It is not a character flaw. It is a defense mechanism that was built inside you by years of disappointment, and the mechanism is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is protecting you from the pain of hoping again. The skipping pattern moves through 3 motions, and you have lived all 3 of them, probably this week. The first motion is the "I will come back to it" delay. You feel the pull of something. You know in your spirit it matters, and you tell yourself you will return to it later, when you have more time, when you are more focused, when the room is quieter. You almost never return. The window the message belonged to closes, and a piece of you knows it closed. And the next time something tries to reach you, the part of you that knows is a little more tired. The second motion is the "this cannot be for me" deflection. The message lands. You recognize that it fits you, and in the same breath, you tell yourself that the recognition itself is suspicious, that anyone could feel this way, that you are reading too much into it. You refuse to occupy the message even as you receive it. You let it pass through you without being claimed. The third motion is the "I have heard this before" numbness. You half listen. You pattern match the message to other messages that did not deliver. You decide, before the message has finished, that it is going to be the same as the others, and so you stop being present to what is actually being said. You are not skipping the message. You are skipping yourself. This is not a moral failure. The skipping pattern was built in you for a reason. Each motion is a wall you constructed around the part of you that got hurt by hope. I am not asking you to shame the wall. I am asking you to name it so it can stop running you without your permission. I want to tell you about a chosen one I have been hearing from over the last several months. This person, like you, almost closed the laptop on a message very similar to this one. The finger was already moving. The next video was already loading, and in the last second before the click, a quiet voice in the spirit said one word: stay. The person stayed. The message that night turned into the message, that turned into the season, that turned into the year, that turned into the version of life this person is now living. They tell me they cannot imagine who they would be if they had clicked. They also tell me they almost did. The skipping pattern almost won. You are at that same edge tonight. The voice that asked you to stay is the same voice that is speaking to you now. You are allowed to stay. You are allowed to receive. You are allowed to be the one this was for. What comes next requires you to stay long enough to receive it. There are tools the Father has placed in this hour, and there is a sealed declaration waiting for you at the end. But before I show you the full shape of what is in front of you, let me ground what we have learned together so far, because the heeding only happens after the holding, and the holding cannot happen if the mind is racing. Before I show you the full shape of what the Father has placed in front of you, I need to ask you a specific question, because if you do not understand the mechanism, the tools that follow will sound like noise. The question is this: why have these two specific frequencies in you been dimming, and why is the restoration of them happening in this exact order? Child mind first, receiving channel second. The answer is in the next 90 seconds, and it is the bridge between everything we have walked through tonight and what comes next. Let me ground what we have learned together. There are two frequencies that were active in you when you were a child. The first is a high, fast wave that scientists call gamma. It is the frequency of curiosity, of wonder, of learning without effort, of believing the impossible, because nothing has yet taught you to disbelieve. Every child runs on this frequency. By the age of 7, the world begins to dim it. School systems, social conditioning, modern life. Researchers have studied this and given it a name: the decline effect. By adulthood, gamma has gone almost silent in most people, and the child mind that came with it has gone silent too. The second frequency is a slower wave called alpha. It is the frequency of receiving, the frequency where the deep mind is open and what is offered can actually land. Children carry alpha naturally too, but adult life, with its constant pressure, its financial worry, its survival mode, hijacks the alpha frequency and replaces it with a faster, harder wave called beta. Beta is the wave of striving. It is the wave of stress. And when beta dominates, alpha closes, and the channel that allows you to actually receive what is offered becomes blocked. This is why the order matters. Restoring the receiving channel alone, without first waking the child mind, does not work. The adult mind, with the decline effect still in place, does not have the openness needed to actually receive. The child has to wake first, then the channel can open. The same teacher who said the kingdom belongs to those who become like little children was not speaking poetry. He was describing a frequency. Become like the child first. Then receive what was promised. The chosen one who carries both deficiencies is not broken. The chosen one is restorable. And the restoration arrives in 2 waves, in this order, because that is how the design works. You have spent years sensing that the magical openness you had as a child was no longer there, that the receiving you used to do without trying was no longer happening. You wondered if you had lost something you could never get back. You did not lose it. It was suppressed. And the Father, in His mercy, has allowed 2 researchers in 2 different decades, in 2 different labs, to map exactly what was suppressed and exactly how to wake it. The first of these is the work of Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist who spent 34 years studying the gamma frequency and the decline effect. Researchers at MIT, at Princeton, at Harvard, and at several other leading research universities mapped how the child mind frequency could be restored, and Dr. Lake built a tool from that work. The tool is called the Genius Song. The Genius Song is a 7-minute audio track. You listen with headphones, eyes closed, once a day. The technology is called brain entrainment, which means the audio is calibrated to deliver slightly different frequencies into each ear, and the brain, in response, tunes itself back to the gamma wave it was originally designed to run on. The decline effect begins to reverse. The child mind begins to wake. The curiosity comes back. The openness comes back. The wonder, the magic of believing the impossible, begins to return. I want to mention something gently, because many of the chosen ones who walk this path further encounter it after they have begun. There is a stronger, more amplified version of this work that some have moved into after their child mind has already begun to wake. It is called the youthful brain. You will only see it after you have secured the Genius Song, and only if your spirit confirms it is for you. If not, the original is enough. The original is complete on its own. I am only naming it now because I do not want you to be surprised by it later. Now here is the part that almost no one understands. Even after the child mind wakes, even after the gamma frequency comes back online, there is still something in the way. The child within you is awake again, but she still cannot reach for what is hers. The receiving channel is closed. This is where Dr. Stephen Newton's work begins. Dr. Newton is a former Stanford neuroscientist whose research at Boston University, at Stanford, and at Harvard, alongside other research institutions, mapped the second frequency, the alpha wave. He decoded exactly how modern stress, the stress signal as he calls it, hijacks alpha and forces the brain into beta dominance. He built the second tool, and it is called the wealth signal. The wealth signal is a 5-minute audio track paired with a 9-word script that comes from a teaching tradition over 3,000 years old. You listen with headphones, eyes closed, and you let the calibration deactivate the stress signal and restore the alpha state. The receiving channel opens. The mind, now in alpha and freshly awoken in gamma, becomes the design the Father intended from the beginning. The child wakes, the channel opens, what was promised arrives. There is also, for the ones who walk further, a stronger, amplified version of this second wave. It is called the Wealth Signal Accelerator. You will encounter it only after you have secured the wealth signal, and only if your spirit confirms. If not, the original is enough. I am naming it now, so it does not surprise you later. There is one more thing I have to mention, briefly, because some of the chosen ones who walk furthest into this work end up walking both amplifications together. The combined path of the Wealth Signal Accelerator and the Deeper Restoration Tool tends to be what the chosen ones who go deepest tend to choose. I am not pulling you toward it tonight. The originals are complete on their own. The combined path is for those whose specific journey requires going further. You will know if it is for you only after you have already begun. Now, let me speak to the doubts I know are already moving through you, because I have watched chosen ones carry them for years. The first is the "I have tried everything" doubt. You have tried meditation, you have tried visualization, you have tried courses, you have tried prayer journals. Nothing landed. I want you to know that the things you tried were asking your mind to change itself from the inside, and the mind cannot do that work alone. What you have not tried is a frequency-based approach that bypasses the conscious mind entirely. The mechanism is different. That is why. The result will be different. The second is the too good to be true doubt. You have heard this before, so have I. The reason this feels different is that there are two researchers, in two different research traditions who arrived at convergent conclusions. One mapping the gamma frequency, one mapping the alpha frequency, two doctors, two discoveries, one restoration sequence. The convergence is what makes it credible. The third is the doubt about the path being placed below this video. I have nothing to say about that doubt except this. The Father does not require you to act on what does not yet feel right in your spirit. If the spirit is not pulling, do not move. If the spirit is pulling, the path is there. The fourth is the question of why two and not one. The answer is that the design itself is two. The child wakes first, and then the channel opens. One product alone solves half. Both, in order, complete the restoration. That is not a sales structure. That is a description of the architecture of the restoration itself. There are three paths placed below this video, in the description and in the pinned comment. The first path is the restoration path, the child mind awakening alone, for the chosen ones who feel the stirring of the child first and want to begin there. The second path is the receiving path, the channel opening alone, for those whose child mind is already alive but who have been striving without ever truly receiving. The third path is the complete restoration path, both waves together in the order they were designed to arrive. The third path is the one most chosen ones walk, because the design itself was always meant to be both, in sequence. The teacher who said, "Become like little children, then receive the kingdom," was naming this exact path 2,000 years before the science caught up. The window for what the Father has placed in this hour does not stay open in the same shape forever. I am not pressing you. I am only naming what is already true. The path that is placed below this video tonight is calibrated for this season and seasons close. You should also know that there are imitations, other audio products that use these names without any of the actual technology behind them. They appear on platforms that do not have the tools, do not have the bonuses, do not have the guarantee. The only place to find the real, original work, with the full restoration architecture intact, is through the link placed below this video, in the description, and in the pinned comment. Do not search for these names elsewhere. The real ones live only where they have been placed for you. Take a breath. Let what was just named settle. There are 3 doors below this video. The Father is not deciding for you which one to walk through. He has shown you the architecture. He has shown you the order. He has shown you the path. The decision is the only part He left in your hands. The doors are placed beneath this video, in the description, in the pinned comment. The path is there for the spirit that is already pulling. You are not becoming the chosen one tonight. You are remembering the one you have always been. There is a difference between earning an identity and occupying one. Earning is a posture of the orphan, the one who believes love must be paid for. Occupying is the posture of the heir, the one who knows the inheritance was settled before the question of worthiness ever came up. The Father is not asking you to earn what is about to be spoken over you. He is asking you to occupy it. The first thing the Father is naming over you tonight is this: you are the sealed one. Sealed means the assignment placed on your life cannot be intercepted. It cannot be stolen by the enemy. It cannot be dissolved by your own doubt. It cannot be cancelled by the seasons of running you have already lived through. A seal in the original tradition was the mark of a king pressed into wax, declaring that what was inside the document belonged to him and could not be opened by anyone else. You are sealed in that same way. What is inside you, the calling, the gift, the future, has the mark of the king on it, and what he has marked, no force can break. Live this from the inside. Stop checking to see if your assignment is still yours. It is. It was sealed before the day you forgot. The second thing the Father is naming over you tonight is this: you are the one who stayed. You stayed when others walked. You stayed when the prayers were not being answered. You stayed when the silence got long. You stayed when your friends moved on to easier paths. You stayed in this very message tonight when 100 other voices were trying to pull your attention. The Father has watched every staying. The chosen ones who carry their assignments into completion are not the ones with the most talent or the most resources. They are the ones who stayed when staying did not yet feel like it would be rewarded. That is who you are. Live this from the inside. The next time staying feels foolish, remember that you have been the one who stays since you were small, and that staying is what made you eligible for what is now arriving. The third thing the Father is naming over you tonight is this: you are the heir of the promise. Heir is a word that almost no one uses about themselves anymore, but it is the most accurate word for what you are. An heir does not earn the inheritance. The inheritance was decided before the heir was born. An heir does not negotiate for what was already deeded to them. An heir simply walks into the room, presents the proof, and receives. The Father has been preparing the documents of your inheritance since before your name was on the calendar of this earth. What is in front of you in this season is not new wealth being created. It is old inheritance being released. Live this from the inside. Stop praying like a beggar for what was already deeded to you. Receive like the heir you are. The fourth thing the Father is naming over you tonight is this: you are the one who heeds. To heed is to shema, to hear with the intent to obey, to collapse the gap between the word and the action. From this hour forward, the gap closes. You will hear, and the hearing will move through you into action without the long detour through doubt. That is not because you became more disciplined. It is because the part of you that used to doubt has been retired. The Father has appointed you in this exact moment as the one who heeds. Live this from the inside. The next word you hear from the Father, do not store it. Move with it. The skipping pattern is no longer your operating system. You are sealed, you are seen, you are summoned. And from this hour forward, what was assembled for you, you receive. What was placed before you, you walk through. What was sealed in you, before you had a name, you now occupy. Before this message moves into its closing, the Father has placed something in front of us that cannot happen with words alone. I want you to come inward with me for a moment. Wherever you are right now, let your gaze soften. If you are driving, do not close your eyes. Just let the world around you blur slightly at the edges. If you are not driving, you can let your eyes close. In your inner sight, I want you to see a door. The door is in front of you. The door is open. Light is spilling through the doorway, warm and steady, falling across the floor at your feet. You do not have to imagine the room behind the door. You only have to see the door and the light and yourself standing at the threshold. This is not visualization. This is occupation. The door is real in the spirit, and you are standing where you are actually standing. Now, in your inner sight, take one step forward, just one. Cross the threshold. Feel the weight of being known. Shift from theory to settled fact. You are not asking permission. You have already been given the permission. You are walking into the room that was prepared for you before you had a name. Stay there for a breath. Let the light reach you. Now, slowly, gently, bring your awareness back to the room where your body is sitting. The threshold has been crossed in the spirit. What happens in the spirit is what arrives in the natural, in its own time. Father, we come to the close of this hour with hands open, not because we have figured everything out, because we know we have been seen, and being seen is the first half of being healed. You have watched every chosen one in the sound of this voice walk through their own preparation. You have counted the prayers that were started, and not finished. You have witnessed every staying. You have arranged every detour. You have placed this hour in front of them, and they stayed long enough to receive it. So we do not come asking, we come receiving. We release the pattern of skipping. We release the fear that this was for someone else. We release the accumulated regret of every message we walked past in seasons we cannot recover. We release the doubt that arrived too late and stayed too long. We release the voices that named us by what we have not yet become. We release the silence we mistook for absence. And in the place where all of that used to live, we receive what the Father is releasing now. I am the one who stayed. I am the one who hears. I am the one who heeds. And from this hour forward, what was assembled for me, I receive. What was placed before me, I walk through. What was sealed in me before I had a name, I now occupy. The skipping pattern is no longer my operating system. The orphan posture is no longer my default. The hesitation that used to live in the gap between hearing and heeding is finished, and the door that was opened in this hour, I walk through. You are not alone in this. Right now, all across the world, chosen ones are receiving the same word in the same hour. You are part of a quiet movement of ones who stayed when staying was hard, and the staying is being rewarded tonight in 1,000 different rooms in 1,000 different cities. You are not the only one. You are one of many, and being one of many does not make this less yours. It makes it more real. It is sealed. If this word reached you because heaven moved it into your line of sight, comment the words, "I am sealed," below this video, so the Spirit knows you received what was placed for you tonight. If this hour did something inside you that you do not yet have words for, the like under this video is one of the small ways you confirm to the Father that you were here. It is small. It still matters. If you have walked with this voice this long and you know there is more coming, more words, more hours, like this one, the subscribe button keeps you placed in the path of the next one. The Father is not finished with this season of speaking. Stay in the path of His voice. Think of one person in your life who has been unusually quiet for the last several weeks. Someone who has been carrying something they are not yet ready to name. The chosen one who needs this message tonight may not find it on their own. Share this with them, gently, without pressure. Sometimes the door has to be pointed out by someone else. And finally, the path I named earlier in this hour, the 2 waves and the 3 doors, is placed below this video, in the description, in the pinned comment. The Father is not deciding for you. He has placed it there, and the rest is between you and your own spirit. You came here looking for confirmation that you were not making it up. You leave with more than that. You leave with a word that was sealed over your life, a frequency that has been named, a path that has been pointed out, and an identity you no longer have to earn. Carry it the way an heir carries an inheritance, quietly, confidently, as though it had always been yours, because it had.